Hey guys, today I'm receiving Pascal Bieri. He's the co-founder of Planted, a Zurich-based startup developing meat alternative. They produce alternative chicken, pulled pork, kebab, schnitzel, and their products are available at restaurants and retailers across Switzerland, Germany, Austria, France, Italy, and the UK, 6 countries across Europe. In this episode, we will go deep into the alternative meat space and whether startups will win that race against the food giants like Nestle. So we're glad to have one of the leading alternative meat startups in Europe. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. You don't want to miss out. Let's go. Pascal, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Joan.
Can you briefly describe Planted? Location, team size, business size, just right off the bat for people that don't know you.
Yeah, of course. We're a food tech startup out of Switzerland. That's our home base and our production here in near Zurich, Switzerland. We're a spin-off of ETH, which is a technical university in Switzerland, a really good one. And we focus on, solving the protein crisis or providing plant-based, clean, tasty proteins similar to meat, better than meat. To our consumers. We are active in 6 countries so far. We have teams in Germany, Austria, Italy, France, the UK, and the main hub HQ is here in Switzerland.
Switzerland. All right. So I want to kick it off with a spiky thought and compare the alternative meat market in the US and Europe. In the US, for context, a lot of people are aware of a ton of IPOs. So Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, Memphis Meat. Already super successful, ginormous, signing deals with food chains like McDonald's, Burger King's. Essentially, as an investor, you had to invest in 2009, 2011, and wait for 10 years. That ship has sailed. Then we have Europe. Where are we today? Are we already too late to the party?
Hey, when you look at the protein sector, and I really want to count in any protein that you're eating, and it's way too many animal proteins that we as a humanity consume right now, right? We're at the very, very beginning when it comes to a plant-based diversity of these protein solutions to us as consumers. And I would argue that whether it's Europe or the US, I don't think any market is far enough or has gone towards reaching typical meat consumers yet. In most markets, we're talking to 5 to 7 to 8 to 9% of the population with the products that we're making right now, including the ones you mentioned before. But really, we need to step up our game, making better products, cheaper products, texturize the products that we're making in a juicier, more natural, healthy way also to the consumer. Look at the price points that we have to reach because meat is super cheap. It's also heavily subsidized, but that's a different topic. And I would argue that we have to be at the very beginning of how we provide protein to any consumer, whether that's in the US or in Switzerland or in Europe.
So even though the US has a big head start, the race is still on, and the big chunk of the shift is ahead of us.
It needs to be ahead of us. Look, I mean, you can come at it from different angles, right? You can come at it from the necessity angle of we have to feed more people on this planet. People are living in more urban areas. There's a lot of people, not in continents like the US or Europe, that will be adding a lot more meat on their plates. So the meat consumption worldwide is still rising. And that has to come from somewhere. And the fact of the matter is that animals have a super inefficient way of transforming proteins into a texturized material that tastes fantastic, right? And we're super used to eating it, and we use it in so many different applications, menus. And that will increase. But with the current portfolio that's plant-based out there, yeah, you might solve the burger application a little bit, right? We have a really good solution for texturized chicken, pulled pork, smaller pieces like that. But meat is super versatile, and we need to find better than meat solutions, plant-based and more sustainable. And we're working on that with a huge and super talented product development and science team. But we're really that the focus is to create better meat than what animals do, and obviously
we're going to talk in depth.
Way more efficient.
Yeah, we're going to talk in depth, and I know that you've spoken before about all the applications of meat. We're going to come back to the product level. I just want to stay macro for a minute. Some basic stats: the European meat substitute market is expected to grow to 3.5 billion euro by 2027. Right, so it's an 8% annual growth rate. Yet the core question is, who will get the lion's share of this growth? I can't help but think that startups or the mega retailers like Nestle, Cargill, the battle is on. And when I go to my local supermarket, it seems like the big retailers are kind of winning. What's your view?
You mean big industry players? Is that what you're saying?
The big food producers.
There's certainly a way of looking at a shelf internationally and seeing the same products basically in anywhere, whether you live in Copenhagen, right? Whether you do that in Denmark or
Berlin,
you do it in Germany or Switzerland. What we can see is that our products are making a dent in Net Promoter Score. So people that actually go into the category, try us, will come to the category again. And this is something we live by. If we would be negative, like a lot of the products are, I don't think we'd have a reason to still be out there. We need to keep people in the category that try it, right? And right now, this is a bit of the problem of the category. It's seen a huge rise also through the pandemic. And now I think people are getting more critical, and that's where we come in.
With the taste and the quality.
Yeah, quality, price, taste, juiciness, the range of applications that you can cook with it. Because historically, when you use meat, you know exactly how to prepare it and how to cook it in the menus that you're making. And some of the plant-based products just don't hold up in a lot of these applications. They might be perfect on a Caesar salad, but then that super unnatural flavor that a lot of these products are using is the crazy off note in a curry. And you don't want that as a consumer. So you're looking for alternatives and you're not going back to the category.
What is the factor that drives success in alternative meat, though? Is it really the taste, the look, or is it more branding? Is it more production or even distribution?
Hey, in food, I think it's distribution, production, driving your own metrics there, and being kind of like in control of your destiny when it comes to producing and sourcing, and maybe also using different proteins to make a similar product, right? Having that kind of like playing field out there is important. And then it must be taste. That's what brings people back to. Well, for us as a startup, having our own production and being kind of like the driver of our own destiny there is important. We didn't make our seed investors didn't like it when we just decided to build this factory that's behind me, and that we're like making 1,000 kilos an hour now. Started out with making 30 kilos an hour, at ETH, but we've proven that we can scale production up and become more efficient and drive costs down, and having a very healthy gross margin is important as a startup, as you're growing at that speed.
Yeah, so Tesla is facing that, right? The main bottleneck was production. You at your scale as well. But how can you outperform if distribution and production is the bottleneck, how can you outperform the monster retailers that are going all in? Is it through more capital raise, a ton of VC money, or winning somehow the marketing race?
I think it's a combination of best product. So having a solution that the retail partners that we're having, they know if they add planted to their offering and people choose it, they actually come back to that shelf and buy again. And that's an important metric for us. So yes, it's product quality. It's certainly, but then it's probably having the ability to keep innovating and make better products and more efficient product. And there's so many levels how you can count sustainability and the efficiency, and having all these factors, and you can drive all of them, should give us the winning angle. And also maybe, and that this is a bit broader now, we're not just focusing on retail. So yes, we're a P2C company. We sell to retailers in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, Italy, and France, and the UK now. But we also have a huge footprint in food service. So delivering to restaurants directly, to industry partners, to people that make bowls, sandwiches daily, or not daily. Anywhere where we use protein, really, we see a market. And I think our food service offering is almost more attractive than
interesting.
Retail,
so that market alone will certainly become a ginormous market, right? So if you stay niche in that service, restaurants, chefs, more high end, you might certainly get a big lion's share of that market. Is it really too early to tell, or is it already your direction? We do about, depends on the market, but it's between 40 and 50% of our revenue in food service. Okay.
Switzerland's a bit less, and Germany it's a bit more. And you can just like that playbook that we have, and by talking to a restaurant or a chain or a menu creator for example, a train company, right? Like our planted chicken is in a wrap on the Deutsche Bahn. When you travel on the board bistro, you can eat planted chicken either in a wrap or in a teriyaki bowl. And we don't make these bowls, right? But we had the perfect solution, the protein, to go into that application. In that case, adds a lot of value to our partner Deutsche Bahn, but also to our co-manufacturer, if you will, or the industry partner that produces these menus.
Yeah, and let's double click on your technological innovation. Tell us how it differentiates from all the other meat alternatives. There's a ton out there. The catalog is getting deeper. What makes Planted special?
We always, from the very beginning, we wanted to make great product, right? We're not hardcore vegans. We don't hire based on your eating habits. But we wanted to make products that convinces us and would win people like us founders or our team over. And we tested a lot with chefs. We still do. Great restaurants like Tim Raue, for example, in Berlin with his 2 stars. He cooks daily with Planted, or historical venues like Fiegelmüller in Vienna, right? That has our schnitzel next to the piggy schnitzels that they serve. So getting that right? The feedback and get that back into product development. So making the best product for professionals, then also leaves a very, very good product for you and me, private consumers. So yeah, I think that angle is important, and helps us get better every day.
And I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe things have shifted, but you produce everything in a glass house production facility in Switzerland?
Yeah, that's right. So when we decided, we noticed that nobody can make the fiber textures that the way we created our technology at ETH and upscaled it. And when we started sourcing for a factory with a first raise, we fell in love with this place here. It's about 3,000 square meters, little outside of Zurich. And we wanted to produce a factory that people can visit. And then luckily the decision was made that we build a glass house around it, kind of like a grow house, right? Like you would grow vegetables. to build a transparent factory. We have a bistro here now, a restaurant. You can come eat Planted and see how we make the product at the same time. You can have a coffee. We have every night, there's groups of, from companies or private events happening here. People just visiting and
they can make a meat on their own meat.
They can make their own marinade.
Oh, that's great. So that's the first transparent meat production facility open to the public.
Yeah, and maybe why we did it also, right? It's not just because we're not an animal slaughterer, because there's that saying, right? If all slaughterhouses had glass walls, everybody would be vegetarian. I don't think everybody, but I think most people would become vegetarian. That's right. But we only use 4 natural ingredients to create our products. So only protein from plant-based proteins, fibers, oil, and water, basically. And then there's a high moisture extrusion process, a cooling dye that we're switching depending on the products that we're making, short fermentation process, and that's it. That's our products. And now we can see from our science team that prototypes are moving from science to product development, where we use fungi tech, more fermentation, more specialized or more deeper. That the know-how that we're building goes now to an upscaling for certain bigger pieces that we're making. And those are going to be our next products that we feel like are necessary in order to create a category that has a chance to kind of compete with all the animal parts out there.
Yeah. And since you prompted me on the ingredients, so one of the new generation of VCs are not just looking at financial returns, they're looking at impact. And we're trying to keep founders and startups accountable on the CO2 reduction, but also the holistic impact profile of a startup. So I wanted to get a reality check here. You use peas, use flour, use water. Where do all those ingredients come from? Where are they sourced?
We try to source as locally as possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the pea protein we're not getting out of Switzerland. We're getting it out of France, mostly Europe. Just as close as possible.
Local enough.
Look, when you look at food, right? I mean, food is most of the time a very local thing, and we want to become more local. We want to produce where our consumers are. So the next factory, we won't feed the world out of this factory here in Switzerland.
Yeah.
But we create technology here that then can be duplicated in other markets and be more local, right? And we will need to adapt on our protein and fiber sourcing as well, on the raw materials in general. We have a huge database of raw materials that, according to the end product and depending on the technology that we're using, you use different kind of raw materials from plants to make the best product.
And another question regarding ingredients. I'm a vegetarian myself. I'm curious. I'm trying things out, and I find most meat alternatives based out of soy, tofu, seitan, pea. What is the best substitute to hold up to all the food applications out there?
I don't know if there's the one that's the
There's
best.
no winner. In terms of nutritional profile, in terms of locally sourced impact profile, etc.
I think it needs to be local. That's important for us, and to have an impact, a positive impact on this planet, a sustainable one. I think food needs to be able to grow locally. Pea is fantastic in that regard. It grows in Central Europe, and it's super healthy for our soil as well. It brings all the amino acids the essential amino acids that you need. And so the protein richness is there with the pea that we're using. For our pulled pork, for example, though, we are adding sunflower press cake. That's out of a circular economy, right? It's used in sunflower oil production. The press cake is left behind and is often used to feed animals. Now we're using that. And for our pulled pork, we're also using oat protein. So when you start to mix different proteins together, you can build even greater amino acid profiles in your protein. And I think that's a very essential part of what we're making, and under the whole umbrella of creating something better than meat, right? It can be healthier, tastier, and just more better for you and your body too.
And by the way, I invite. I checked out your website, and I like the transparency and the fact that you're trying to show the videos of the production and the extraction mechanisms. So I invite everyone listening to check it out. It's actually, it helps understand why the fake chicken looks like a fake chicken. We'll link everything in the show notes. People can check it out.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's super helpful. And another point of curiosity is the accuracy of the Nutri-Score. I find that all the Garden Gourmet, so the Nestle brands and all the big retailers tend to, use the A to F Nutri-Score now, which will be enforced throughout categories of products in the EU. What do you think of this? Does it really reflect the actual quality of ingredients, or just the absence of really bad, nasty stuff like saturated fat, colorants, artificial flavors?
The Nutri-Score, yeah. There's one thing. Hey, you can play with the Nutri-Score pretty badly, right? You can take a little bit of salt out, so you're in a different category, and you're getting a B that's a little green still, right? And I think it's often used for can you greenwash towards the consumer, maybe, huh? Or make it healthier than it maybe is. I wouldn't personally shop because of a Nutri-Score label, but I guess it brings a certain transparency to the consumer.
Yeah,
we have it as well, and for our French packaging, because there we feel like it is very established and very important to the consumer. We'll add it in more countries now.
So you are A-Score.
Our chicken, the original one without a marinade, it's the A-Score. Our pulled pork has an A-Score. The kebab has a B because of the marinade, right? It depends on the salt and fat level.
As a C?
No, it's a B as well.
It's a B. I do pay attention to that, and I'm sure a lot of people
really
do.
Okay.
It's just a psychological thing.
It doesn't really say anything about the ingredients itself, right? Like a short natural ingredient list, which is super important to us. We would never use any flavors or any methyl cellulose to create texture that others don't shy away from doing. You can use all that stuff and still get a good Nutri-Score. So it doesn't really say anything about the quality of the ingredients, but I guess it says something about fat and salt content in regards to the calories that you're taking.
That's good to know. So it's A-Score doesn't necessarily make it super healthy. You just say eliminate some really bad, nasty stuff.
Yeah, it's not fat. It's not super fat, for example, or not super salty, right? That's what it basically means. I would invite you to look at the ingredient list of how a product is made. There you can see more.
My granny would probably spend the time, but we're all busy individuals.
That's where marketing comes in, right? That's where we need to say to the consumer, if you buy planted, you have natural ingredients, and no. My co-founders will kill me if I say no chemistry, because obviously everything is chemistry, but we wouldn't add a chemically made flavor into our products. We believe in spices and oil, for example, for marinades.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the growth. You're preparing for a journey of growth, and we do receive a lot of unicorn founders on the show, and you're not at that stage yet, but you intend to be. You certainly have a room for growth. How do you prepare your company for growth? What is the structural shift that you've done, maybe internally, hiring the right people or just creating the right culture? What are you currently doing to prepare?
I think it starts with culture. We never made a secret out of our growth plans or aspiration, or how we wanted to build a company that changes this world for good. So it starts at the very beginning with what kind of mission you set yourself out onto, right? And then we set out a company culture that is very clearly on Planted itself and not on egos. So between us four founders, for example, we had a very divide and conquer kind of approach that I think the team took over pretty nicely. And of course, we got more specialized now, right? And we got people way better than us in our team that bring the same growth aspiration. And obviously, you start to become more specialized in what you do. But it's always having that accountability for what you do towards the team, towards the organization. That to me, I feel like this is the most important part when you're on that growth journey. Like, do I do what's best for the company, or do I do what's best for me? That should never be the winning argument, right?
So you hire A players, people that are specialized and really good at what they do, and then you try to maintain an A layer culture. Which sometimes often comes with expectations and egos.
Often, right? Yeah. I think it helps if the company's established a very planted first approach. It should be about the company and not about yourself. And I think we've done that quite nicely, or the team has also done that quite nicely. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, people that join us want to change the world and want to drive their career at the same time. So it's about having opportunities for A players to advance their careers, and that could be leadership, that could be other markets, that could be maybe even a different topic. So that needs to be somehow fluid as well, right?
And I'm curious also to hear, I've been an entrepreneur, I've hired people, and I'm surrounded by operators that are of a lot of ideas on how to instill the right hunger for growth in their culture. Does it come to you by hiring been there, done that talent, people that have been in that role and they can hit the ground running, or on the contrary, it's hiring more junior resources and mentoring them to scale?
I think it's both, and probably depending on the market that you're in, depending on how well you're known and received. I think in Switzerland we were established quite fast, and then the media, there was a lot of attention, right? We were voted Switzerland's #1 startup last year. I think there isn't much more press and coverage you could get, honestly, and then being in that very public kind of field of alternative proteins is another driver. So I think it's easier for us, for example, to find great talent in Switzerland than it is in other markets. That is a fact. So
since the talent is cheap in Switzerland, it also
certainly it's not as expensive as you would think, and yeah, it helps. Look, I mean, in the beginning, right? I mean, the A players that join you take a big hit on. Yeah, as a startup, you cannot hold up with what the big players are paying. But
right, Credit Suisse or UBS standards. And
I don't think we hired too many guys from there. But
I wanted to ask you another thing that triggered my interest is the fact that you're a spin-off from the ETH Zurich, right? For those that don't know. Probably #1 university in Switzerland, very high profile, particularly for tech founders or engineers. Was that the secret of your success, the early success, was to leverage the ETH brand?
We really much wanted to get that kind of spin-off logo and that credit on for us as a company, but and yes, it puts a lot of trust from the population into us, into our technology. So it certainly helped. But I think what helped us almost more is that we had access to labs and to talent, and basically make the pilot plant into a production
for early angel investors. It probably helps as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the specificity to Switzerland. Unfortunately, I wish the model could be replicated, in France and Germany, in the UK. In the UK, it's a bit of a different profile, right? Oxford is a renown as well. Would you suggest that to other, especially technical founders, to attach themselves to an institution like that provides all the resources, brand, labs, facilities?
It was certainly the right approach for us. It's a good one because you're not giving it away to a corporate, right? There's always a chance to hop on somebody's kind of like innovation center, and then you're half corporate already, or you're like in their backyard a bit too much, probably. So yeah, I like that approach. Also because we enjoyed a lot of liberty, and like I said, we made the pilot plant to a production for plant that obviously paid rent and everything, but still we couldn't have started that fast if it wasn't for ETH.
Yeah. So Pascal, I wanted to jump into your rapid fire round. Are you ready? You know the principle. 2 options. You just give me your answer in a brief manner. So the first one is VC backed versus bootstrapped. What is your general go-to rule when it comes to the first 2 years of a business? You know, to grab as much upfront VC money, or to try to keep the expenses low and bootstrap?
I wouldn't say as much VC money as possible, but yeah, get some external money, a smart one, because you'll learn from them, I would say. But yeah, if you bootstrap, do it in a smart way. Like, yes, it's good to not give away too much of the company at the very beginning, but make sure you listen to somebody, right? To somebody that has a little stake in the game. And I think VCs are sometimes a good reality check to the business model. And
I'm with you here. My perspective, we could write a book about this, and it's probably been done. My feeling is that if you're a first-time entrepreneur, you definitely want to surround yourself with the brains, the people that have been there, and you want capital, so you don't have to overly stress about the daily expenses. You know, the website hosting, the daily stuff that pollute your mind and take it away from your core focus. If you've been there, meaning a second-time entrepreneur, third-time entrepreneur, you kind of know how to cut the noise, be super good at executing. You probably want to take the bootstrap path because equity matters.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Second question is founder versus an investor. What do you think personally drives the most impact? So VCs that have a portfolio approach, or more the entrepreneur that is super sector
impact
focused?
on this planet.
On the planet, on CO2 reduction, and
founders all day.
Founders.
Hey, yeah, I mean, you drive your thing, right? And sometimes maybe I would count VCs as almost founders, right? If it's really their thing, and they take the accountability for their fund, because it is an important aspect of what we do, right? You need to allocate money. So yeah, maybe as long as the VC has that kind of founder hat on.
Okay. And now getting acquired versus IPO, what is the more likely scenario for Planted?
More likely, I don't know. We don't specifically plan for an IPO, or we don't specifically plan to acquire. Actually, we plan not to get acquired. So yeah, I think whatever's best for the for the next capital round, right? Wherever makes most sense to get the capital from.
That's probably not what you tell your investors. And the last question is expansion versus inspiration. How do you scale alternative meat globally beyond Western countries, particularly in barbecue land, right? So Brazil, Argentina, Australia. Do you think it will happen through scaling monopolies? So you have enormous conglomerates in Europe, in the US to scale and do enormous marketing spend. So they convert the culture locally. Or do you think it's going to happen through inspiring more local players to copycat, basically create their own version of?
First, I would say what you need. I mean, I studied in Buenos Aires for a semester, so I lived in a big barbecue country for a while, and did my fair share of that back then. I think you need to have the product that speaks to that consumer, and it's not just steaks, right? I mean, everything gets thrown on that barbecue, but it's never small little pieces. It's always, something that covers that roast. And so I think if you have that product right, or a product range, and I would say if you have the technology to make this product range right, then either do it yourself or with a partner, or you leverage your technology. That might be a different game then, right? That's how you win over such a consumer group or such a market. But if you'd say, oh, it has worked fantastically in Switzerland, we'll go with that to Argentina. Yeah, you probably haven't understood your customer base.
Yeah. So great. With that, Pascal, we've run out of time. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
And to all the listeners, we're doing this podcast for you, and we would love to hear your feedback. So if you would like to hear more insights from more founders or investors, drop us a comment on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and sign up to the newsletter so we can exchange more directly. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.